The first thing that felt wrong wasn't the screaming, or the alarms, or even the blood. It was the way the morning sunlight looked off the peeling linoleum in the ER. I've seen enough bad days working as a night shift security guard at St. Jude Regional Hospital to know that a weird vibe isn't enough to call 911. But today my hands wouldn't stop shaking. I just blamed it on too much coffee, not enough sleep, and a lingering hangover from microwaved burritos. It was supposed to be a normal Thursday. I clocked in, swiped my badge, nodded to Janet at the desk, like always. I joked with Ed in the parking lot about the Mets blowing it last night and texted my little brother that I'd cover his shift this weekend. The radio crackled with something about a patient gone missing, but that wasn't unusual. St. Jude's has more missing charts than missing patients most days. Except this time, there was blood on the floor outside Exam 6, and nobody was cleaning it up. I bent down just enough to see if it was paint or maybe ketchup, but it was thick, already half dried, and trailed toward the double doors of the trauma bay. Janet caught my eye, her lips pinched tight. I asked her if we needed to call someone, but she just shrugged, told me, "Housekeeping's running behind." Her eyes flicked to the two guys in army uniforms sitting by the vending machines, one scrolling his phone, the other watching the nurses like a hawk. We never had military here. Never. I kept moving, but everywhere felt off. The coffee tasted burned, people coughed and wouldn't look at you. Every phone on the nurses' station rang at once, and nobody picked up. Ed came down from radiology, pale as a ghost, and told me the hospital Wi-Fi was out again. No one believed him until we all checked our phones. No bars, no Wi-Fi, no signal. My girlfriend Liv was supposed to pick me up after work, drive me to her mom's birthday dinner. She didn't answer any of my texts. Neither did my brother, which was weird. He always texts me back, even when he's pissed. I tried to call, but my phone just buzzed. Emergency calls only. The TV in the waiting room was on mute, but the headline ticker at the bottom kept cycling the same phrase. Unusual activity reported. Follow local authorities. A guy in a hospital gown wandered past the front desk, looking lost. The army guys stood up quick, blocking his path. I heard one of them mutter, "Don't let anyone else through." The patient kept walking, mumbling something about needing water. He was limping, his gown spattered with something that didn't look like blood, but smelled like it. A nurse tried to steer him back, but he shoved her so hard she slammed against the wall. The other army guy radioed for backup. That's when the alarms started. Not fire alarms. Hospital lockdown alarms. The sound is like a dentist drill, but lower, meaner. Something you feel in your teeth. I ran to the security office, heart pounding, and yanked open the door. I saw the monitors, patients banging on doors, people running down halls, blood smeared on glass. I tried the intercom, but it just spat out static. My keys felt useless in my hand. I wanted to call my mom just to hear her voice, but my phone was still dead. That's when Janet's voice came over the PA system, shaking. "All staff, shelter in place. Do not open the doors. Repeat, do not open the doors." I thought about Liv, about my little brother, about my stupid apartment with the leaky faucet and the Mets poster on the wall. I thought about my dad, who died of heart failure last spring right here at St. Jude's. I didn't feel brave. I felt like puking. But I forced myself to start checking the exits, one by one. Every hallway felt too long. Every shadow looked like it moved. Ed caught up with me, breathing hard, asking if I saw the guy bite the nurse in the hallway. He sounded half crazy, but he had blood on his shirt and something wild in his eyes. People started piling up against the double doors to the ER. Janet came running, her face white, dragging a first-year resident who couldn't stop crying. I asked her what was happening, and she just kept saying, "It's not right, it's not right." The army guys tried to get everyone to move back, but nobody was listening anymore. Someone pounded on the glass from outside, hands bloody, eyes wide. That's when the PA shut off mid-sentence. The only sound left was people screaming and something else, lower, like growling. My hands started shaking again. I locked the door and prayed it would hold. The pounding on the glass stopped for just a second. Everybody in the lobby went quiet. It was a silence that didn't feel like a relief. Then came a sound I've never heard in my life, not in the hospital, not in horror movies, not anywhere. Like a dog snarling, but bigger and wetter and all wrong. The glass cracked, spiderwebbing out from 2 bloody handprints. A fist smashed against it again, and this time it broke. Jars fell everywhere. Someone screamed, and a man in scrubs tried to grab a chair to wedge the door shut, but there was no time. The first infected to make it through wasn't a stranger. It was Ms. Kemp from the night janitorial crew. I'd known her for 3 years. She always left candy in the break room. But her eyes were wrong. All white, no color. Blood ran from her mouth, and her hands were shredded. She lunged at the closest person, bit deep into a nurse's shoulder. Blood sprayed everywhere. People scattered, tripping over each other, trying to hide behind anything they could. How often had you and your I saw Ed freeze, like his brain couldn't catch up. He always thought zombies were stupid. Now he was standing in the middle of a real one and it was chewing someone's face off. I had my flashlight, not much else. I swung at Miss Kemp, caught her in the side of the head, but she didn't even flinch. Her jaw unhinged, teeth clacking, and she barreled at me. I ducked behind a desk, dragging Janet and the first-year resident with me. More infected forced their way in. A patient with a broken arm, a man in a hospital gown, and a little girl who looked like she'd been asleep 5 minutes ago. Their eyes were all wrong. Their movements were twitchy, like puppets. The army guys opened fire, real guns, real bullets. The noise was deafening in that tiny lobby. 2 infected went down, but Ms. Kemp didn't stop. She tackled one of the soldiers, bit him in the neck. I grabbed Janet's arm, yelled at her to run, but she couldn't move. She just kept whispering, "Not real, not real." I dragged her toward the elevators. The buttons were dead, power out. The only option was the stairs. We made it to the 3rd floor, me half carrying Janet, the resident sobbing behind us. Every door we tried was locked or barricaded. We ducked into a supply closet. My hands shook so hard I dropped the flashlight twice. My phone still had no signal. I sent one last message to Liv, even though I knew she wouldn't get it. "I love you. Stay away from St. Jude's." Down the hall, we heard the alarms change. Now it was the fire alarm, shrill and meaningless. Then footsteps, dragging, heavy. Ed appeared at the end of the hallway. He was bleeding from the arm, pale as paper. He saw me and staggered over, collapsed against the wall. I could see the bite, deep and ragged. I knew, instantly, he was done for. But I couldn't just leave him. The lights flickered and died. Darkness swallowed us. The only thing I could hear was Ed's breathing, ragged and fast. I thought about all the times we watched Mets games on his phone, the dumb jokes, the time he covered for me when I was late. He looked at me and tried to smile, but his teeth were already bloody. I pressed my back against the closet door, listening to the pounding, the screaming, and the sick sound of teeth on flesh somewhere in the dark. Something broke in me right then. I realized it wasn't about infection anymore. It was about change. The rules of life, of death, were different now. Ed grabbed my wrist and squeezed hard, like he wanted to say something. His hand was cold. He whispered, "Don't let me turn." But I couldn't promise anything. Not yet. Not with Janet crying in my lap, the closet stinking of antiseptic and blood, and the world outside gone to hell. The pounding started again, this time on our door. I thought about opening it, running, screaming, fighting. But instead I just sat there, eyes shut tight, hoping someone would wake me up from this nightmare. I don't know how long we hid in that closet. Time stopped meaning anything. My phone screen was black. Janet fell asleep for a while, twitching and mumbling. The first-year resident, her name was Sam, I finally learned, kept rocking, arms wrapped around her knees, whispering prayers. Ed drifted in and out of consciousness. I kept replaying his words. Don't let me turn. My mind kept trying to make rules, to organize the chaos. All I could do was grip the flashlight and pray it wouldn't die too. At some point, the pounding stopped. The silence came back, sharper this time. I cracked open the door. The hallway was empty. The lights were out except for a flicker from the exit sign. Somewhere down the corridor, someone, or something, was moaning. I wiped sweat from my face, nodded to Janet, and we slipped out. Sam hesitated, but followed. Ed tried to stand. He made it 3 steps before his legs buckled. The bite was worse, now already black and swollen. He looked at me, his face slack, and said, "You gotta do it, man." I couldn't. Not yet. We started dragging him toward the stairwell, leaving a trail of blood that felt like a death sentence. We tried the fire stairs. The door was jammed, wedged from the other side. I banged on it until my fists hurt. Nothing. The sound traveled, though, echoing out into the hospital. I could hear them, the infected, moving below us, behind doors, somewhere above. I saw hands, pale and bloody, clawing under a door at the end of the hall. No more hiding. We ducked into an office. There were supplies on the desk, scissors, tape, a letter opener. Janet started barricading the door. I grabbed the letter opener, pressed it into Ed's hand. "If it happens, you use this," I told him. His eyes were glassy. "Promise me you'll use it." He nodded, but I could tell he wouldn't. Not if it got bad. Suddenly there was a pounding on the office door. Not a zombie, a person. A woman in scrubs, face streaked with tears, begged us to let her in. Sam wanted to help her. Janet and I hesitated, but the woman was desperate, screaming. I unlocked the door. She ran in, slammed it behind her, then collapsed, sobbing. "My son's still out there," she cried. "He's only 6. For a second, everyone argued. Janet said we had to help. Sam said we should barricade. I said nothing. Ed just groaned. In the chaos, nobody noticed Ed's breathing stop. He sat up, fast, eyes wide. For a split second, he looked like himself. Then he snarled, a sound I'd only heard from the infected. He lunged at the woman in scrubs, teeth snapping. She screamed. Everything after that was pure reflex. I grabbed the letter opener, drove it into Ed's neck. Blood went everywhere. He twitched, then slumped. The woman in scrubs scrambled back, eyes wild. I felt my stomach turn. I'd just killed my best friend. Sam was sobbing. Janet stared at me like I was a stranger. I wanted to throw up, but there was no time. Down the hall, the infected had heard. The groaning got louder, closer. The barricade wouldn't last. I shoved supplies into my backpack. Gauze, scissors, anything that might help. The woman in scrubs begged us to help find her kid. I told her we would, even though I was lying. There was no way we'd make it far. But what else could I say? We made a run for it, out of the office, down the corridor. I heard the infected bursting through doors, feet slapping, hands clawing at walls. We made it to the stairwell. This time the door gave. We barreled down, the sound of pursuit behind us, no plan, just moving, just surviving. The hospital was on fire now, alarms blaring, smoke creeping through the halls. Somewhere someone screamed my name. I didn't look back. I kept moving. The hospital, the only place that ever felt safe, was burning. We were all running, limping, changed forever, and the only thing ahead was the unknown.